everybody. We're back. This is Corbin, the Serpent-Tongued Skipwith.
This is Ren, the Berserker Marabou, and this is...
SAGAS.
Woohoo! Welcome, everybody.
Welcome to our... I forgot the episode number. 14.
14, is it?
13, one of them.
Wow. Well, if I got it right there, that's a miracle, because you're the one with the numbers. And you remember
the album today is...
Today, we're going to do the awesome Huldufólk. It's spelled Huldufolk, Huldufólk, by none other than the legendary Celtic Hills, or as they like to call themselves, Celtic Hills. But I'm in Ireland, so we say Celtic here. Because I'm half Celt. I'm half Celt and I'm half Norse. Norse. You could say Norse Viking if you want, or Norse pagan. So I'm a half breed here. We call ourselves Norse Gaels because we're half and half. So that's me. So anyway, that's the show for today. All the best. So Huldufólk, what an album. Absolutely delighted to be chatting about not only this band but this album. These guys are from Italy. They're from a lovely place up the north of Italy. Called Udine or Udin. Not 100% sure. There's going to be a lot of disclaimer. There's going to be a lot of mispronounced words here today, as per usual. I'm sure people have come to expect that from us. But so this was just released in 2022 through Elevate Records, who are a super cool label as well. Lots of really cool bands. These guys, I'm lucky and fortunate enough to be buddies with these guys. They have the same management as myself and the Berserkers. They're lovely people at Split Screen Management, and so we're all part of the same clan, the same family. And the guys love to dabble in Norse mythology as well, but not as much as I would. Like my whole music lyric content would be all about this, but these guys love to grab little bits and pieces over the centuries, but specifically about their local history, in the north of Italy, which is really, really, really interesting. They call themselves a historic band because they like to dabble in the history of things, but also obviously they're a power metal band, and that's where they really shine, with the power metal side of things. So I don't know, bro, what do you think first? Well, this is your first.
Yeah, it's interesting because when I was sent this album recommendation, shout out to Dave Wolf at Asphyxium Zine. He sends me album reviews all the time, and he sent me this, and the description he gave me was initially, he's like, "Oh, come listen to this Viking metal band," and I was like, "Viking metal, interesting." So, and then obviously my shock when I played it, and I was like, "This is more power metal, speed metal." But I've got to say though, the intro track sounds real folky, which is cool. The intro track, like the first part of it, and then obviously it gets into that power metal. But yeah, I thought it was, considering it turned out to be more power metal based than it did Viking. I found it really interesting, and I found it because to me the vocals reminded me a lot of like Dragon Force, or like even Judas Priest back in the day. Well, actually Judas Priest now, he still sounds amazing. But like it's just like it has that really strong vocals. It has that real powerful notes that I can't even believe the vocals is hitting half the time. So yeah, considering I was actually expecting a Viking metal album and not this kind of album, when I finished listening to it, I was nonetheless obviously impressed, and yeah, that's my initial thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, it's like Celtic Hills are one of those bands you can't pin down. You can't put them in a box because they just don't want to be. I love that about these guys, and that's what I like to do with my own music. But I like to listen to bands that do it as well. They, whatever Jonathan wants to write in a session, he'll write. He's not sticking himself into a box to only sound like a certain genre. And like every song that these ever write is like, it's just there's just so much different styles of music just thrown in there. But the interesting thing about this album for me was the last album had the same producer, and they done a very good job on the last album. Again, we're going to pronounce it wrong, but Miste Keltoy was the previous album to this, and it's an absolute beast. I love it. But they went with the same producer and the same studio for this one, which I was delighted to hear when because I followed Jonathan online, and he was talking about the album before it came out, and he was saying that they're going back to again, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, but Mikhail Gutali, right? But he's actually quite a well-known figure in his own right. Aside from the producer side of things, he's actually the singer of two very cool bands. He's a singer in a few bands, but two that the listeners might know. Visions of Atlantis, and he's also the singer of, well, duo singer, because there's female singers there too, and Temperance. So Temperance were a band, like, I listened to them for years, man. I absolutely love their stuff. And the thing about Mikhail, he does so much work with so many different bands, and he always brings out this really nice, sweet production. Like, it's not even like, it's not oversaturated with too much production. You can hear on this album, man, he just puts just the right amount of, a couple of horns here, like some synths here. And actually, one thing about this album was the usage of synths. It really stood out, and it was, they've dabbled in that over the years, but they never really fully went for the main melody being these key synths, and it actually worked out really well. But so the album was recorded in Groove Studios, or Groove Factory Studios, in the same place the boys are from, Udine, in northern Italy. And it's so cool because it's like this really cool. There's a place over here called the Nerve Center in Derry, and actually the Berserkers are playing there this Saturday. So if anybody hears this before Saturday, come on to Derry. Corbin's gonna start running when he finishes this podcast. Yeah, and the Nerve Centers this Groove Factory that the boys recorded this in very much reminds me of the Nerve Center. It's just like a hub for all kinds of like creativity, art, and obviously there's studios mixed in there too. So there's just a lovely hub of the creative types hanging around. That cool vibe. So the Groove Factory, from what I can see, it's very similar, But yeah, so I was delighted to see that they were working with Mikhail again, because Visions of Atlantis, I don't know if you know them, bro, but they're like they kind of like pirates. He wears like the pirate cap, and he's just like a badass cool dude. So to be working for a badass cool dude like that, to be working with badass cool dudes like Celtic Hills and Jonathan, for instance, it's just a recipe for awesomeness. But before I forget to say, actually, the album is for sale on Elevate Records. You can get it at elevate2records.com, and it's only 11 euros, and it's well worth it. I have mine ordered, so I can't wait to get the actual artwork, because the artwork is badass. What do you think of the artwork, dude?
Yeah, the artwork. So yeah, it's very like, reminds you of kind of like the Lord of the Rings, like Game of Thrones, but you got the two dragons, and you got a random deer, what was it, a demon or something, and then a dragon obviously in the middle of the arch. But no, it's very bad, and like the colors, it's very like very dark toned, like green, and then you got that that majestic white in the middle. Yeah, I think it's played very well. Like the artwork, it's not too colorful, and then again on the other spectrum, it's not too dark. It's like the perfect tone that kind of represents the fantasyness of this album, the fantasy style of this album.
Yeah, exactly. No, it fits it perfect. And Jonathan was teasing us for quite a few months before. He like posted up a picture of him with his he has this wicked custom made green guitar. I forget the company now, but it's really iconic looking. That it's almost a similar green that's in the artwork, but he was teasing us with pictures of him standing in front of this artwork, before he let us know what was going on. Like, it just looked like a cool picture of him standing with his green guitar and his cool green background. But he just gave you a little snippet, and then it was kind of unveiled a few months later. It was like, oh, that's the album cover. That's super cool. It was actually done by an artist called Sheila Franco. I'm not entirely sure what other bands work that I think she's more of like a contemporary artist, like more kind of fantasy contemporary. And the boys just obviously love her work because they've done I think the last 3 albums with her. So yeah, definitely something to look up if anybody's interested in really cool artwork. I think she has a handle as like Hell Art or something. But anyway, yeah, you'll find it, Sheila Franco. Yeah, absolutely love it. But you were talking about the first track on the album, right?
Mm.
I love that. The Secret of the Grail, it's called, for anybody who's listening. The epic orchestra intro was just like, wow, man, it just draw you in with this big dramatic, right? And you kind of expecting the whole album to be this. Yeah. But they, like I said, there's only a few little drops in there, so it's like we could have gone this direction, but we wanted to stick to just sick riffage and crazy fast drumming. Like, it is really cool. But I love that track because it has like a dramatic intro, and then all of a sudden it's more joyful. That speed metal guitar comes in, and it almost sounds like it's a celebrational sounding kind of ballsy tune. Like, I try to describe them. That's all I think about a lot of times. Like, they're joyful metalers, but it's not even happy sounding necessarily. Like, it's just, I think it might be the tempo. It just gets you kind of excited because every track is like 200 BPM plus, and it's just super cool. Like,
well, I find that, the more I think about it, the more I was thinking about this album, most bands that are power metal, speed metal, I think every band that falls into that category automatically has kind of a happy tone to them. It's always a happy fantasy, a happy adventure, a happy story told. Like that album we chose ages ago about that power metal band that you chose that told that galactic story. It's always happy. You never hear like a depressed, like emo, like power metal band, which would be pretty interesting. But so yeah, I do understand what you're saying. How as soon as that nice little Viking focus side, like, is over and done with, then that power metal comes out. And look, to be honest, I was the first to listen. I was a bit disappointed it wasn't all folk or like Viking metal. I was like, oh, I'm doing perfect. But then obviously the more I listen to it, I'm like, all right, I get it. I get the aesthetic. I get why they're doing like this. And, from the vocals to the production. And that's actually something I wrote about in my review. Shout out to the band. I reviewed you guys already. So this is a double review. But when I reviewed, and I stand by it today, like, even though there's so many, elements and obviously the small little hints of the Viking folk influence, what stands out to me is that among the 12 tracks, the production it flows like a river. It's very seamless, even though each track brings its own unique thing to it, to the album. It all flows like a nice river, which I think is pretty interesting considering how much is going on in each track. For it to come together so balanced and so well, it's actually quite an amazing feat.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's the thing that these guys do so well. They swoop every track. There's so much going on, and it should sound like there should be more clashing in sonic kind of dynamics, but they just do it so well. And you listen to this album and you don't realize they're a 3-piece band. It's absolutely, it's a testament. Like, being in a 3-piece band myself, like, there is always a couple of extra challenges, but it just goes to show how good these guys are. Like, Jonathan has a very distinct style, vocally and guitar wise. Like you said about his vocals, I really do hear the Rob Halford kind of vocals with like a bit more, I don't know, I wouldn't say overtones, but he's just got this like ability to have these high reaching notes, but like with a load more gravel and ballsy. Like, you know what? I've heard a lot of people talk about his voice being very unique. And to me, that's the most important thing in the world. I know we're comparing him to Rob Halford, but that's just the register that he hits. And we're always going to try and find someone to compare them to, you know. But these guys, you can compare them in certain elements, but overall you can't really. Like, they're very unique, and down to Jonathan's guitar style. You'd know it was him playing guitar. You know, I've listened to him for a few years, and you know, straight away you're like, you know, say you have like a playlist playing, and straight away you know, even if it's a song you've never heard of theirs, you know, it's Jonathan's guitar playing. The other thing that's really interesting about these guys is they've been a band since 2010, but they didn't get signed to Elevate until 2020. And then since 2020, this is their third album that they've released through Elevate. And I think that's absolutely badass. It just goes to show the grit and determination of these boys, you know what I mean? It's like, you know, never give up. Just keep on sticking to your guns, and you'll make it, you know. And this is a pure testament. They've had a rake of lineups, different members in and out of the band, but ultimately Jonathan has been like the driving force behind the band, which I really cool. Like, I think it's really cool. I really respect Jonathan for all his hard work and determination. But speaking of which, their drummer sang on one of these tracks. It's like a bonus track,
Living out the
living
egg.
out living out the egg. But there's two versions. Jonathan sings on one, and Simone sings on. Simon sings on the kind of like alternative version, but it's the one they actually made a single for it, which I thought was really interesting. And they have him singing in the video and stuff. But he's leaving the band to pursue a singing career. So it just goes to show how cool these boys are, that the last single video that they released, they let the drummer sing, you know, his version for their big video release. I thought that was really cool, because it's kind of like respectful, like, yep, you go ahead, brother, you do your thing, and here's a kickstart. Because the video on YouTube was after skyrocketing. It's only out a couple of weeks, and it's at like 111,000 hits or views. So it's like that's badass. Like, and I think that might be the first time they've hit 100K with a video, and the fact that they put the drummer through. So it just goes to show, like, they're good, down to earth, proper, good skins. Yeah. So hopefully, we wish the drummer all the best. It's just a shame though, because he's a brilliant drummer, you know, and he wants to be a singer guitar player. And I know myself, like, when you're a multi-instrumentalist, it's difficult to really, I don't know, there's always one specific thing you want to go for. I love playing drums. I love producing. I love playing bass. I love singing without playing guitar, but ultimately what works best for me is to play guitar and sing, you know. And I'm sure he feels the same. But he does have a good voice, but it's a bit more punky. So I'll address that a little bit more later on. But it's a bit more punky, sort of. So I don't know what sort of music he's going to do after this. I'm sure it might be like some kind of modern post-punk or something, just judging on the sound of his vocals. But yeah, he's a great drummer, and it's such a shame. As you listen to this track, and he could play power metal with any of the bands that, you know, we've discussed anyway, man. So it's a shame with that sense. But yeah, 2010 and then 2020, 10 years later, these boys got signed to a very good label, and it's just going strength to strength. It's only been like, what, 3 years, 2 years? Lads, give Celtic Hills another couple more years, like, and they'll take over that power metal scene, I say.
Yeah, definitely. So I want to ask you, you know, a little introspective question, considering this is why it's cool, our partnership, because it's like, because you're part of a band, whenever I have questions about band stuff or the actual music itself, I can always turn to you, which is cool. But so my question is, when you hear bands obviously like this album where they're the kind of band to add little bits and pieces, like, you know, obviously the Viking and the folk metal influences among the majority of the album, which is power metal. So like, in your opinion, how hard, or how would you personally find that hard to do for your band, for your music, for example? Like, as in, would it be like an easy decision for you to suddenly, hypothetically, on your next album go, all right, we have Viking metal, but I want to add a little bit of thrash, hypothetically, or you know, a bit of sludge, or a bit of groove metal? Do you think it's an easy like switch over to make, or it's an easy thing to do to add these little elements in, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think it has to be like a natural ability. You know, some people try and do that, and you can clearly see it's not working for them. But these guys, you know, lyrically and musically, they naturally don't lock in anywhere. So it kind of gives them the room to breathe, to you know, add different elements. Like, even lyrically, like, they have, obviously, you knew I was going to talk about this song at some stage, but Hammer of Thor. There's a track on the album, Hammer of Thor. And obviously, straight away, that's like, oh yeah, that's Norse mythology. And, you know, I don't know if I've mentioned, but the album title, Huldufólk, is actually based on in Norse, Icelandic, and Faroe folklore. The Huldufólk are like a hidden people, or elves. And they just have like this lovely, rich history of stories and tales of these amazing people that only make themselves visible if they want this. You know, they're hidden, and it's just magical. You know, well, we all know the stories of elves and stuff from Lord of the Rings or whatever, but these are just people that live in nature, and that's what I love about the artwork. It just ties in nicely. But there's this Norse element to it, but then there's the more historical, you know, where there's that track After the Earthquake, number 3. That's about like an earthquake that happened in like 1973, and I presume it's northern Italy. And the guys love to talk about these tragic times, but in more of a kind of a camaraderie, where like, say this was the aftermath, and everybody's sticking together and helping each other out. And so yeah, I find it interesting that these guys talk about historical and mythological in the same album. I don't. I mean, yeah, you can do that with, say, Vikings, because Vikings, the historical Vikings and the mythological Vikings are kind of hand in hand. But for it to be entirely different subject matters, it's quite interesting. Like, and I commend them for doing that. You know, because it's whatever Jonathan wants to write about. You know, which is really cool, because a lot of artists are very concerned about what other people want, and what the labels want, and the critics and stuff like that. But he just writes what he wants to write, which is absolutely badass. I mean, he's a super cool badass dude anyway, that you wouldn't want to mess with either. He's a big dude. And he's like a big Viking himself. Like, you want to see him, goes around in a kilt at festivals with a drinking horn, and so long blonde hair and the beard and all tied up. So he's a super cool dude, and he just follows his own path and does what he feels is right. Like, their first EP, I think, or was it their first demo album, was Horns, Helmet, Fighters, and that's got some sick tunes on it as well. I actually think there's a bonus track on this album that could be from that. It's like a remix, as like a bonus track right at the very end. But yeah, so I don't know if that answered your question, bro. Like, it is and it isn't. You know, it depends on the person and the band and the direction the band go in. But these guys definitely seem to do it effortlessly. You know, they just have all the different themes, and they can throw it in. So yeah, no, it's a testament to them, like, you know.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, kind of hitting the nail on the head, because I've heard a band, like, there's a band in particular. Obviously, I'm not going to name names because I don't want to shame them. But it's just like, there's a band that I discovered years ago, and they're a band that fuses metal with jazz. And at first I'm like, oh, that's a cool concept. And then when you listen to it, it sounds so forced. It's like, dude, like if you're gonna mix these two polar opposites, you're gonna have to do it. You're gonna have to do it. To me, like very, very particularly. Otherwise, like the band does, unfortunately, it sounds real forced and it sounds real awkward. But it's just like, exactly bands like this who don't have a label, like a genre label, who can do what they want, but yet at the same time, among 13 or 12 tracks, still sound in sync, still sound so like, still sound in harmony, still sound like a focused, well-lit project, well-conceived project. It's actually amazing because as I just mentioned, most bands, well, not most bands, but there are bands out there that try to be too ambitious. They try to be too adventurous. And, obviously that's not a bad thing. I think if you're passionate, you have to be adventurous, but just like when you try to mix too much or when you try to do stuff that doesn't work and you're trying to force it, I don't know if those bands that do this understand this, but listeners, they can hear that. It's not something you can really put into writing, but you can hear forced. You can hear when it doesn't meant to match. And it becomes an awkward experience for listener, but this band doesn't have that problem, obviously. They fuse so many different things together and they, as I said, they miraculously come off seamless as if it just flows in naturally, which for considering how many different influences are in this album, that's actually quite amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's Jonathan's able to produce so many different variations of metal vocals in the same track. That kind of thing probably helps a lot. Like I mentioned, the Hammer of Thor, he actually reaches the deepest heavy vocals that I've heard him do to date, as far as I can remember. On my notes here, I've drew a little smiley face with two little hearts beside deep vocals because he's always had this like powerful kind of a macho kind of voice as well as the high ranges. But this particular album, he threw down some deep vocals, and this track has this question and answer vocals where he's singing his high notes and then he's doing his deep heavy voice and then he's back again to the I don't know how he's going to pull that off live, like that's, but then again, he's a magical superhero, man, so like maybe he'll be able to do it all right. But yeah, man, like it's funny, they are very dynamic with their sound, and it's just, they can produce anthemic tunes like that. I don't know what it is. It could be the combination of musicians, it could be the songwriting, it could be the production, it could be it all put together. But it's funny, man, because like even the track number 4 is called The Hidden Folk, and that's back again talking about the title of the album, Huldufólk, and it's just got like this lovely distinctive guitar sound that it's Jonathan, but it's different sounding to everything else on the album, like. And obviously I said about Simone, I hope I'm saying that right, Simone's drums, he has that lovely gallopy drums, which brings you into this like old mystical place. That kind of sound just brings you back in time, and then obviously they can then throw in all the synths on top of that, and it just seems to work. It's very bizarre that they can pull this off, like. But yeah, man, just absolute legends. Like, I could rabbit on all day about Jonathan and the like, and even Miguel. Well, I never mentioned the bass player all this time. They actually have one of the most badass. His name is Jacopo. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. I'm just kind of gonna call him Jack Novello. Jack Novello. Listen, man. I mean, I'm a dub living in Donegal. I can't pronounce these lovely names. But come here. He does a great job on the record as well. There's some really, really sweet fat bass lines on this album that really bring out the track, you know, I'm always talking about rhythm sections, and these boys ultimately done a fine job on this album. I'm actually, I tell you what, I would love. We always talk about producers and stuff, and I'm like, oh, I'd like to work with them, but I genuinely would love to work with Micaiah. And like, listen, I'm gonna say this on the podcast because I've never said this, and it's been something that I've been thinking about for a long time. And Jonathan, if you're listening, man, I'd love to work with you on a track. So just putting that out there. It's something I've discussed with the boys for a long time. I just thought it was a good time to say it. I'd love to have him sing on a track, or you know, put some guitar down and stuff. Like, I think we'd work really well together. Anyway, I digress, as I say. They have their official website. You can check them out on Facebook, obviously, and they have a really cool website, Facebook site. But they're also on I think they have an N1M. So any musicians out there that know New Music One, I think that's called. Let me see. Sorry, I'm trying to read my notes. So yeah, www.n1m.com/Celtic Hills. It's just a cool place where people go listen to music and they get ranked. As far as I know, the boys were like #1 there last week or a couple of weeks back, and yeah, which is well deserved. But before we go any further, this album has got rave reviews. Like, it's just it's only out 2 weeks, is it? Is it 2 weeks? April 1st. Today's the 20th. So yeah. So it's what, 20 days out, and it's been getting like everywhere you look online. It's just like, this album is killer. I haven't seen it getting any lower than 7.5 to 10, and most of them are like 8, 9. I've seen a few 10s. I definitely would give them 11 if if I was giving them a number. But yeah, man, just you know, they've been compared to Vicious Rumors, Judas Priest, Primal Fear, Gamma Ray, and I tell you, there's just so much more to the bands than those comparisons. You know, they excel in what they do, and their previous album has one of my favorite tracks as well. The Tomorrow of Our Sons, killer song, deadly video. Go check it out. It's just the boys hanging out in like a field, looking super cool. You don't need anything else when you've got those boys. They're just like in a field looking badass, playing guitar like in a cage or something. Like, it's just super cool. Anyway, I digress.
I'm excited to talk about our legendary segment. Considering how fanboyish you are, I'll be excited to see what you say about that.
I know.
Before that, I think we should get into talking about any lovely sponsors or shout outs we want to do this week. And you can start, because I have a feeling your list will be shorter than mine.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to break into the big shout out to the lovely folks at Skull Strings. Skull Strings, anybody who has or has not been following me should or may or should know, or possibly will know now, that they are the best guitar strings for heavy guitar players. And all we do is chat about heavy guitar players in this show. But not only that, they sound wicked on, lovely clean. They just got a lovely warm tone to them. I have a signature set, Cass Cirker from Ren Marabou and the Berserkers has a lovely new set out now too. So if you're looking for bass strings and guitar strings, that's the place to go. Plus, you know, the name Skull Strings, it just makes, you know, it's cool. Like, so yeah, I think it's www.skullstrings.com. Check it out. You can see all the artists with our signature strings, or you can buy the standard sets. And, you know, like I said, they're for heavy guitar players. So if you tune down low, if you have 7 strings, 8 strings, 9 strings, that's the place to go. They're a French company, family run, and they're absolutely lovely. So that's my shout out for the week.
Well, let's get this started. Start off with the big boss man himself, Zach Moonshine, a man who doesn't need any introduction at this point, but we're going to keep doing it because that's what we do to the people who take care of bands and music in general. So Jack Moonshine, legendary PR man, has worked with, I'm convinced, every band under the sun. I wouldn't, I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't be shocked if that's what he said happened. I'll believe him. He's a workhorse. He gave us the inspiration for one of our episodes a while back by the Mexican band, and that was an amazing album. He helped the narcissistic one himself and his band with their music, and look how that turned out. And like I said, thousands more probably. He's a never-ending workhorse. So if you want to contact him, if you need PR work, there's no point trying to find anyone else but the GOAT himself, the Michael Jordan of PR, Zach Moonshine. And you can find him at Zach, Z-A-C-H, at Metal Devastation Radio, one word.com. Contact him and see what he can do for you today. And I think I'll keep my list short today with my regular second one, the Gas Digital Network. If you're a fan of comedy and if you're sick of the PG era, then go to gasdigitalnetwork.com, subscribe to their channel, and you'll find tons. I think they have about 50, maybe not. They have about a good handful of shows, all ranging different topics, different subject matter. The reason why I subscribe to it is for two shows in particular, the Legion of Skanks and Aaron Berg's show, Berg's Base. Legion of Skanks contains three comedians, Dave Smith, Lil Shay Gomez, and Big J Okerson, all with their own different styles of comedy, and which is what makes the trio funny, because they all have very different outlooks on life, very different outlooks on comedy, but they all have one thing in common, which is fuck the PG era. That's why for all of them, they say what's on their mind. They don't care. They tell the most dumbest and craziest jokes of all time, and they are the most offensive podcast on the world, which is appealing to a guy like me. So go check them out. And Aaron Berg, amazing comedian as well. He has his own funny, ruthless style, which I always enjoy. Go subscribe to them. It was about, I think, $15 or $13 Australian. So it's probably $8 or $9 everywhere else. It's definitely worth the money considering all the shows you get. And yeah, go there, gasdigitalnetwork.com.
Sweet. Yeah, Gas Digital. I'm on a private group on Facebook, and it's pretty funny. Some good stuff on there too. So go check that out. Find that fun stuff there. I love your description for Zach, man. The Michael Jordan, man.
Wow.
It's so true. It's so true, though. It's true. He's I tell you, he's a gifted soul at what he does. Yeah. Happy days. Yeah, good stuff.
Well, you know what today is? Oh, sorry, not today. You know what right now is? It is none other than Diablo Advocate. Oh.
I'm just going to strum this out of tune anthem for the... All right. Happy days. Right. So, Devil's Advocate. I'm going to let you go first, man.
Of course. You're probably sweating in your chair. Think about saying something bad about these guys.
I'll be like, I'm going through a tunnel, man.
Well, this is the beauty of not being a fanboy in this situation. I guarantee you, if this was a Creative Filth album, it would be a lot different. But it is not. So let's start with, I'll start on a positive note, the best ones. So for me, upon all the re-listens, it had to be one of either The Secret of the Grail, the first track, or track number 7, Living Out the Egg. So both for the same reasons. They both have a lot of Norse vibe to them, a lot of real cool, like, especially the intro is really cool. Viking-inspired intros, real melodic, real fantasy-like, real beautifully done, and it kind of puts you into a trance before the obvious power metal comes in and blows you away. But I don't know, I just really love the songs that have the most of the Norse influence in them, sonically, I mean. And those two did it for me the best, so I couldn't choose between those two, so one of those, either would be fine. Now for the worst track, interestingly enough, the more I re-listened, my choice changed a few times, but then for this podcast, I had to choose on one of them. So I'm choosing track number 10, Villager Kirk Tag. I think that's it. I'm choosing that because, I don't know, to me, it just sounds a bit, how do I, like, it sounds like a bit of the music sounds a bit parody-ish, like very jokey, like very tongue-in-cheek. It sounds, it kind of sounds like the kind of music you hear in the 1950s when a mime is like doing this thing. Like, and which isn't a bad thing if you single that out, but I feel like for the context of the album, it's the only track to me that doesn't fit as smooth as the rest. So yeah, it's a good track to just listen to by itself, but in the context, like I said, in the context of the album, just it sounds a bit goofy, and who knows, maybe that was their intention. Maybe this one song is about a jester or something, a jest from the 18, I don't know what it's about, but assuming, look, to the band, if that was your intention to make a kind of a tongue-in-cheek sounding song, you did it perfectly, and there's no harm in that. But if you didn't, then unfortunately, yeah, that's the song I'll choose.
Dude, I could have predicted your picks this week, man. Yeah, the track number 10 that you were just chatting about, you know, it's a fun song. It's like I wrote down in my notes, fun, super fun, exclamation, exclamation, exclamation. It's just like the fun song of the album, and it's funny because I'm going through a weird writing phase at the moment. I think it's because it's coming into summertime here, and the days are longer and it's brighter. I always write a bit more kind of like joyful, and this song is kind of on the lines of where I'm at the moment. I'm sure you'll chat to Terence or Cass later on, and they'll be like, "Yeah, man, he has been. Everything I'm sending is very joyous, whatever." But I love this track for that reason because I'm in that zone. But I knew that it would be the track on the album that wouldn't lock in for you because I know your listening taste now. But you know, the song mentions coffee, cigarettes, beers. There's a little bit of accordion, and there's a gang chant in it as well. And do you know what it's like? It's like Celtic Hills punk. It's like their punk version. So, you know, I can imagine there being like loads of accordion and it being like a Celtic punk. You know, it's like that Celtic punk. So yeah, I could have predicted that. I still think it's a good song, but I get what you're saying. So I was kind of almost 50-50 with you this week. Actually, no, I wasn't. I'm totally against this week. My least favorite track, and I'm gonna absolutely bitch out with this one because you know I'm a big fan of the guys. Living Out the Egg is a brilliant song, but the version of the song that Simon sings or Simone sings is my least favorite on the album. Not because the performance is bad, because he does a great job. He has a great voice. I think because I heard the original one first with Jonathan singing on it, and I loved it. And I was like, this is a big anthem. This is gonna be their big track. And then I saw the video, and the video was great, very cool. But then you know Jonathan wasn't singing on it, so I got a little bit disappointed. Even though Simone does a great job, or Simon, I don't know which. I'm just gonna say Simon. He does a great job. He has like a more modern style, quite punky, post-punk kind of style vocals, which he's gonna do very well as a vocalist if that's the direction he's going in. But the track ultimately sounds better with Jonathan's unique voice. Just because it's what I'm used to hearing on these songs, you know, and it's got nothing to do with technique. It's a stylistic preference for me more so. So I'm taking the weasel way out of this one this week. Right. So you were half expecting me to anyway, but no, yeah. If anybody's obviously you can't see at home, but Corbin just threatened me with a bottle there because you know I wimped out here. I did threaten him with an axe here last week, so it's fair enough, man. But anyway, I'll quickly run away from that. Now, like I said, the video has 111K. So obviously, Simon done a great job on the track, and everybody loves it. But for me, you know, yeah. So So I'm gonna move on to the song that's my favorite song. Yeah, man, I know. So I was the same. I had 3 tracks that I wanted to pick as my favorite, and this is where I was thinking maybe I was 50-50 with you, because Living Out of an Egg with Jonathan singing on it, you know, it's such it's a great track. So, but because I picked the other one as my least, I didn't want to. It would have been weird. So I have 2 other tracks, and I'm still kind of trying to whittle them down here, but I think ultimately I'm going to go for one. Hammer of Thor was going to be one because it's, you mentioned Thor in a track, and I'm going to love it, man. But they do a very good job on the song, and Jonathan's vocals, like I said earlier, big, beefy, heavy vocals, and it's great. But the track that really stood out, and the one I kept going back to listening to, even before the podcast, we were chatting about, I was listening to this album, enjoying this album anyway, but I was enjoying this track in particular. After the earthquake, after the earthquake, it starts off with this really killer Rush style intro, but it's like a heavy, heavy Rush. And then there's just that lovely Rob Halford vocal on the verses, or esque Rob Halford. Rob Halford would be impressed by his Jonathan's vocals on this track. There's no doubt about it. And the chorus just lands so perfectly as well. It's just like I said earlier, the song's about camaraderie of people in the face of a natural disaster, but the way, because the song is a very upbeat song, it just, I love that. I love camaraderie. I love, brothers in arms, and everybody fighting the good fight. It always just hits me sweet. But yeah, like I said, tragic disaster in 1973, I think, because he mentions 1973 in the song. I just love it. There's amazing guitar solo stuff in it, and one of my favorite things is when a guitar solo repeats the chorus melody. I love that. Like Kurt Cobain used to do that all the time, but I love that in this song. I love how he does that. It's always like a simple thing, but people don't think about it enough. Actually, now that I think about it, I'm gonna do that on a new track today. I just inspired myself. Yeah. But then there's a key change at the end of this track, and this is where it really catches me. Like, it's a really high register song for the vocals, especially. But then they decide to throw in a key change. It brings it up again. So I'm like, as if the vocals weren't high enough already. He's like, oh, I'm just going to bring up to, the 5th octave. Right, let's go. And it's not a bother to him. Like, it's brilliant. So that's my favorite, and my least favorite, which is still a favorite. So that's me.
You've been so disappointed by that.
I know you're gonna rip into me later on, and all.
Oh, don't worry. In the description when I publish this, I'll be like, advisory. The big bad berserker went, bitch.
No, if anybody was saying that bad about it, then I'd go berserker. But yeah.
What an episode. Well, thank you for tuning in, guys. And next week, I already have my choice ready, and it's going to be an interesting one. I think the most interesting as far as genre pushing we've had since starting, I think. And that is the 2020 studio album by Ghostman, Anticon, or Anti-Icon. So it's an artist I've been following for like the past few years, and he's really impressed me with just his combination of hip hop. It's kind of like the alcoholic stepfather of new metal. He's really just taking that to a whole new level, and a whole new gruesome level. And I can't wait to talk about it. I can't wait for you guys to listen to it. So if you guys want to listen to it before each episode, yeah, just go on whatever streaming service you use. It might be on YouTube as well, maybe. Ghostman, Ghost MANE, Anti-Icon, and that will be there. And listen to the album alongside with us, and then we can all have a big discussion together, freshen up it.
Yeah, excellent. That's a really good idea, actually, getting people to listen to it the week before. It only really work on yours because I can never figure out what album I'm gonna do on the podcast. Like,
Yeah.
I knew last week though. I knew last week.
Yeah, you're very clumsy. Clumsy like.
I didn't break out and join the podcast today, which is a positive because usually I break something.
Yeah. While we still have a few seconds left, who knows? Well, that's us for today. Join us next week. But like I said, Ghostman, which I'm sure if you haven't heard of this artist, he's going to you can have a strong opinion of him, one spectrum or the other. So check that out. As we say every episode, same time, same place, or something.
Or something. All right. Peace, everybody.
All right.
Have a